Welcome to Infinite Universe with more interesting story. Ozzy Osbourne is a legendary figure in the world of rock music. For many years, people have known him for his wild energy, unforgettable voice, and a career in heavy metal that has lasted for decades. From the beginning of his journey with the band Black Sabbath to his success as a solo artist and later as a reality TV star, Ozzy has remained a strong and influential force in music and pop culture. His fans have followed him through moments of fame, times of chaos, and several amazing comebacks. But now, Ozzy Osbourne has opened up about his ongoing health struggles, and what he has revealed is truly heartbreaking. Before the fame, the crazy headlines, the sold-out concerts, and the leather jackets, Ozzy was just a young boy named John Michael Osbourne. He grew up in Aston, a working-class area in Birmingham, England. Born in 1948, he was the fourth of 6 children in a family that didn't have much money. Their home was small, crowded, and life was far from glamorous. It was a tough environment, but it was also the kind of place where powerful music is often born. As a child, Ozzy struggled in school. He dealt with undiagnosed dyslexia, and he was constantly bullied by other kids. But everything started to change when he discovered music, especially the Beatles. Hearing their song She Loves You sparked something deep inside him. That spark turned into a fire, and soon Ozzy knew that he wanted to make music his life. In his late teens, everything started to fall into place. He joined up with guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, and drummer Bill Ward. At first, the band called themselves Earth, but after learning that another band already had the name, they changed it to something darker, Black Sabbath. The new name matched the sound they were creating, loud, heavy, and dark. They didn't follow musical trends or try to fit in. They created their own sound, and when their first album came out in 1970, it shocked people. Ozzy's haunting voice, combined with Tony's thunderous guitar riffs, hit listeners in a way they'd never heard before. Black Sabbath didn't just release music, they created a new genre. Heavy metal was born, and Ozzy became the face of it. Albums like Paranoid, Master of Reality, and Volume 4 completely changed rock music. Ozzy's voice wasn't just unique, it was raw and filled with emotion. His performances were wild and unpredictable. Fans never knew what to expect, and that made every concert feel electric. But behind all the success and loud music, Ozzy's personal life was starting to fall apart. His fame grew quickly, and so did his use of alcohol and drugs. He never tried to hide it. In fact, he often joked about his habits. But those habits came with a cost. In 1979, after years of fighting and tension within the band, Ozzy was fired from Black Sabbath. It could have been the end of his career, but it turned out to be a new beginning. With Sharon, his soon-to-be wife and manager, by his side, Ozzy launched a solo career that took him to even greater heights. His first solo album, Blizzard of Oz, came out in 1980 and introduced the world to iconic songs like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley. His new band featured a young, talented guitarist named Randy Rhoads, whose energy and talent gave Ozzy exactly the sound he needed. Fans were excited, and Ozzy was once again in the spotlight. But even as his career soared, the chaos in his personal life never went away. His addiction problems didn't stop with his solo success. If anything, the pressure to always be performing and staying relevant made things worse. Then in 1982, tragedy struck. Randy Rhoads died in a terrible plane crash while the band was on tour. Ozzy was devastated. Randy wasn't just a bandmate, he was a close friend and someone who brought peace into Ozzy's stormy world. After Randy's death, Ozzy sank even deeper into his addictions. He drank more, had public outbursts, and was arrested several times. But through all of it, Sharon stayed by his side. She was more than just a manager. She was the person holding everything together. Ozzy has said many times that Sharon saved his life. She got him into rehab, pushed him to keep making music, and protected his career even when he was too weak to protect himself. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Ozzy kept releasing albums and going on tour. His 1991 album No More Tears gave fans another unforgettable anthem. His fanbase kept growing, and younger generations who had never seen Black Sabbath perform live became fans of Ozzy through MTV, interviews, and late-night television. Then came the Osbournes, a reality TV show that gave the world a very different view of Ozzy. People saw him as funny, confused, caring, and completely unpredictable. The show made him even more famous, especially among people who had never listened to his music before. But the version of Ozzy people saw on TV, mumbling, off balance, and spaced out, wasn't just for laughs. Something more serious was happening. People joked about it and blamed it on all the years of partying, but there was a deeper issue. Ozzy's body was no longer able to keep up with his spirit. Each tour took a bigger toll. Simple things like walking and holding a microphone became more painful. His hands shook. He fell more often. But Ozzy didn't want to talk about it. He kept performing, kept showing up, because that's what he had always done. Over time, the signs became harder to ignore. More shows were cancelled. Interviews were more difficult. Fans started to worry. But Ozzy still stayed quiet about what was really going on. When asked, he would joke or change the subject. He didn't want to let go of the image people had of him, the unstoppable rock god. He had come so far. From a poor kid in Birmingham working factory jobs to the biggest rock stages in the world. He had survived a lifestyle that destroyed many others. He had outlived many of his friends and bandmates. People thought he could survive anything. But even legends have limits. Eventually, Ozzy had to face those limits. His world, once full of concerts, travel, and excitement, became much smaller and quieter. He spent more time at home. The man who once screamed in front of thousands of fans was now sitting in doctors' offices, taking pills, and trying to walk across a room without falling. And just when it seemed like things were starting to settle, more bad news came. In 2019, Ozzy revealed that he had suffered a serious fall at home. The fall made old injuries from a 2003 ATV accident much worse, and he needed surgery. Recovery was slow and painful. Then, in early 2020, Ozzy made a shocking announcement. He told the world that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a progressive condition that affects the nervous system and has no cure. Fans were stunned. This was Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness. The last person anyone expected to see struggling with such a serious illness. During the interview where he revealed the diagnosis, Ozzy looked scared and uncertain. He admitted that he didn't know what the future would hold. But even then, he tried to stay active. He released new music, talked about recording more, and even said he wanted to tour again. Some people hoped for the best, but others weren't sure if he could handle it. Behind the scenes, Ozzy was going through treatment in Switzerland and relying on support from his family. Over time, though, Ozzy's public appearances became less frequent. He looked thinner, weaker, and more distant in photos. He didn't speak much to fans or the media. Sharon gave updates now and then, but Ozzy mostly stayed silent. People started to wonder if he would ever return. Some said he was still fighting, that he had good days and bad days. But even on the good days, he didn't look like the Ozzy fans remembered. He needed help walking. He couldn't stand for long. And performing on stage, the thing that had always come so naturally, now required careful planning and lots of help. Still, Ozzy never gave up on the idea of performing again. He often said that music was the one thing that gave him a reason to live. It wasn't about fame or money anymore. It was about feeling connected to people. The stage was the only place he ever felt truly alive. And he wasn't ready to let that go. But as more time passed, that dream started to feel farther away. Tour dates were announced and then quietly cancelled. Fans kept hoping for a miracle. Each time, the silence afterward felt heavier. It became clearer that Ozzy, the man who once seemed invincible, was slowly disappearing from the spotlight. Even in the rare interviews he gave, Ozzy always said the same thing, "I'm not done yet." But his body didn't agree. He could barely walk without help. He was in and out of the hospital. He spoke less. He smiled less. And little by little, he started pulling away from the public eye. The man who had been a symbol of survival, who had come back from the edge so many times, was now quietly fighting the hardest battle of his life. People close to him have shared stories about his quiet moments of reflection. He wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. But he was tired. There were days when he couldn't even get out of bed. There were moments when he wondered if he'd ever stand on stage again. And for someone like Ozzy, who lived for music, that question was painful. Yet even now, Ozzy's story isn't just one of decline. It's a story of strength, of resilience, of a man who refused to give up. He gave the world decades of unforgettable music, moments of pure chaos, and endless passion. Even in his silence, his presence still means something. His music continues to inspire people. And though he may not scream from the stage anymore, his voice still echoes in the hearts of millions. For years, fans of Ozzy Osbourne held on tightly to the hope that their beloved Prince of Darkness would one day return to the stage. He had been through so much more than most people could ever imagine. From the early days of Black Sabbath to his massive solo career, and then through battles with addiction, injuries, and illness, Ozzy had always found a way to come back. Even when he was down, he never stayed there for long. He fought, screamed, and clawed his way back into the spotlight time and time again. But over the past few years, things had been different. Each public appearance became rarer. His voice, once powerful and full of grit, grew softer. His body, once full of wild energy, seemed to move slower and with great effort. The man who once jumped and spun on stage for hours could now barely walk without assistance. Fans started noticing the changes a while ago. Concerts were postponed, and then cancelled. Interviews became less frequent. Paparazzi photos showed him looking weaker, sometimes in a wheelchair or using a cane. But no one wanted to believe it was the end. They told themselves that he just needed rest. That the doctors would help. That the legend would rise again, like he always had. But deep down, many feared the worst. And then came the day when the truth could no longer be hidden. Ozzy himself finally opened up, and what he said left the world in shock. In a quiet, emotional message, Ozzy admitted something he had been trying to avoid for years: he was not coming back to perform like he used to. He wasn't taking a break or planning a new tour. This time, it was real. This time, it was goodbye. He spoke softly and with sincerity. No theatrics, no wild gestures, no jokes. Just a man, worn down by life, finally telling the truth. He explained that his health had declined so much that daily life was becoming harder every day. The pain was constant. Standing was difficult. Moving even short distances was exhausting. And singing, something that had defined him for over 50 years, had become nearly impossible. He revealed that he had been working closely with doctors, undergoing treatments, therapies, and doing everything in his power to keep going. But no matter how hard he fought, his body simply wasn't responding the way it used to. There were limits, and now those limits were impossible to ignore. He wasn't trying to give up. He had already pushed through more pain than most people could handle. But he had reached a point where he knew there was no going back to how things once were. It was time to face the truth. Despite all of this, there was still something inside him that wouldn't let go. His love for music and his fans remained as strong as ever. Through all the pain, the surgeries, the medications, the emotional toll, there was always one constant: his connection to the people who had supported him from the beginning. They had stood by him during his wild, chaotic Black Sabbath days, followed him through his solo career, and never left his side, even when scandal and controversy surrounded him. They cheered him on through every comeback, every award, every headline. Now, in what was clearly the final stretch of his journey, he felt a deep responsibility to them. He wanted to give them something back, something final, something meaningful. And so, he made a decision that would shake the music world. He wanted to do one last show. Not a tour. Not a series of appearances. Just one final concert. One night only. A farewell, not just to performing, but to everything. A way to close the chapter in front of the people who mattered the most to him. His fans. It wasn't going to be easy. Doctors strongly warned him against it. They told him that even one show could be too much. His condition was fragile. His body couldn't handle the stress. But Ozzy was determined. He wasn't doing this for the music industry or for publicity. He wasn't chasing fame. This was personal. This was for his fans. For the people who had carried him through life. The world got a glimpse of just how serious things were when a photo started circulating online. It showed Ozzy lying in a hospital bed, looking pale and exhausted, surrounded by machines. His eyes were closed, his body motionless. People across the globe saw it and immediately feared the worst. Social media exploded with messages of concern and sorrow. Was this it? Was this goodbye? But the truth was slightly different. The photo had been taken months earlier, after one of his surgeries. He was still very sick, yes, but he had stabilized. That didn't mean he was healthy. Far from it. But he wasn't on the verge of death just yet. Still, the image spoke volumes. It showed the world just how far Ozzy had fallen physically. He was no longer the wild man of rock, no longer the invincible performer who could scream for hours and leap across the stage. He was now a man in pain, holding on with everything he had left. And then came the announcement that confirmed what everyone had been fearing and hoping for all at once. Ozzy was finally ready to say goodbye, but on his own terms. In a deeply emotional interview, he said it clearly and simply, "I want to do one last show. Just one. Not for the industry, not for a record. For the fans. I want it to be my goodbye forever." Those words hit like thunder. For years, fans had wondered if Ozzy would ever return. Some believed he might. Others had quietly accepted that the end had already come. But now, hearing it from him, there was no denying it anymore. He wasn't talking about a comeback. He was planning a farewell. One last night to stand under the lights. One last night to scream into the dark. One last performance to close a story that had shaped the very soul of heavy metal. The event was quickly named and organized, Back to the Beginning. It would take place on July 5th at Villa Park in Birmingham, England, Ozzy's hometown and the birthplace of Black Sabbath. For fans, it was like a homecoming. A way to bring everything full circle. And the lineup was nothing short of legendary. For the first time in 20 years, the original members of Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward would reunite on stage. It would be their final performance together, a moment that fans never thought they'd see again. But that wasn't all. The concert would also feature some of the biggest names in rock and metal from around the world. Metallica, Slayer, Pantera, Gojira, Hailstorm, Alice in Chains, Lamb of God, Anthrax, Mastodon, and even a special supergroup led by Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine would all take the stage in tribute to Ozzy. Each band would perform in honor of the man who had helped shape their own musical journeys. Ozzy himself would do a short solo set before joining Black Sabbath for the grand finale. And though he wouldn't be moving around much, perhaps even performing seated, the power of his presence would be more than enough. This concert wasn't about energy or perfection. It was about meaning, memory, and saying goodbye. Behind the scenes, preparations were intense. Every part of the show was planned with great care to make sure it would be safe for Ozzy. Special accommodations were made, including equipment that would allow him to rest between songs, limited stage time, and a medical team on standby at all times. The goal wasn't to push him beyond his limits, but to create a moment that would honor his legacy and let him connect with his fans one last time. His wife, Sharon Osbourne, played a crucial role in making it all happen. As both his longtime manager and the person who had stood beside him through every high and low, Sharon was determined to make this farewell everything it needed to be. She helped organize the event, managed his care, and made sure that every detail was perfect. Her love for Ozzy and her dedication to preserving his legacy were clear in every part of the planning. In addition to being a farewell concert, the event would also raise money for causes close to Ozzy's heart. All profits from ticket sales, merchandise, and streaming rights would go toward Parkinson's research and local children's hospitals. It wasn't just about looking back. It was about giving back. About using this final moment to do some lasting good in the world. As the date drew closer, the music world responded with a wave of emotion. Fellow musicians, critics, fans, and celebrities shared their love and respect for Ozzy. Social media filled with stories, memories, photos, and tributes. People remembered the first time they heard his voice, the first time they saw him live, the way his music had helped them through tough times. For many, it felt like the end of an era. Like saying goodbye to a piece of themselves. Ozzy's decision to speak openly about his illness, especially his battle with Parkinson's, also had a huge impact. Parkinson's is a relentless condition, one that millions of people live with every day. But few public figures have spoken about it with such raw honesty. Ozzy's courage in sharing his struggles helped raise awareness and inspired others to open up about their own challenges. The world began to talk more about aging rock stars and the toll that decades of touring can take on the body. Many musicians who had idolized Ozzy admitted that they too were dealing with physical and emotional hardships behind the scenes. In this way, Ozzy's final act wasn't just about him, it was about all the performers who give everything to their art, even when it hurts. And now, the world waits. The concert is coming. The final moment is almost here. For fans across the globe, it is a time of mixed emotions, sadness, gratitude, excitement, and reflection. Some will travel thousands of miles to be there in person. Others will watch from home. But wherever they are, they will be united in one feeling: love and respect for a man who gave them everything. Ozzy Osbourne, the wild, fearless, unstoppable force of heavy metal, is about to take his final bow. Not with a whisper, not with a disappearance, but with music, with fire, with truth. Whatever comes after this, his legacy is secure. He changed music forever. He inspired millions. And in this last moment, he reminds us all that even the strongest legends are still human, full of pain, full of love, and full of heart. This is the end of a story, but also the beginning of a legacy that will never fade. Ozzy's final concert will be more than just a show. It will be a moment in history. A time when the world came together to say thank you. Goodbye, Ozzy. You gave us everything. And now, as you prepare to take your final steps off the stage, the whole world stands and applauds. Because legends never really leave. They live on in the music, in the memories, and in the hearts of those they touched. Thanks for watching. Keep it and stay tuned. Like and subscribe our channel. Have a good day.